And it's Dr. Kenya here.
Oh, and Dr. Deanna.
I almost forgot. So,
Kinda.
let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
So, we have in our experiences, our extensive experiences, seen where product roadmaps are written in the form of colorful swim lanes with lots of information about features and functions. It's very internally focused. What are we building? What are we creating? What are we updating? Rather than what are we doing for our customer, where it's more flipping it and making it more outside focused. And so today we want to talk about the importance of understanding the jobs to be done by your customers and users, but also the journey and how these two components mean so much more to the ability to create an effective roadmap. And for both of us, that effective roadmap leads to improved traceability.
Yes. Improves traceability and also, I think, just a more detailed understanding of the things you need to address when you're looking at
Mhm.
that journey. It kind of forces you to look at those points outside the technology
That's
itself.
right.
So,
That's right. And when we think about framing things from your customer's perspective, you now understand what success looks like when you do get to implementation and when you have to measure how effective the solution is
yeah.
in terms of solving a problem or fulfilling a need. So when we talk about the jobs component, the jobs to be done component, it's not about just the persona or the actors. It's about someone who's trying to get something done. They're trying to execute. And so, what you want to really understand at the core is what is the work or activity they're trying to perform, and how can you capture that information effectively enough to understand the steps, the stages,
Yes.
the goals. Can they
The
accomplish those
people.
goals? The people around them, because when we think about anyone utilizing a solution, product or service solution, there are other people,
Yep.
there are other tools, there are other activities that they're performing in that context. And so you've got to kind of pull some of that back to understand that job, but then introduce the journey to understand how those all fit together.
Yes, and it takes a very, as you know, deliberate effort.
Hmm.
To look at that, it takes cross collaboration, all those things we talked about,
Hmm.
collaborating across teams to understand those jobs, understand those resources,
That's right.
understand the tools involved. And then figure out what's that solution look like? How are you going to address all the pain points and the collaboration in that process?
But Deanne, what you're talking about, that sounds like a lot of time and money.
Well, not necessarily. I think, Kenya, we were looking at an article that was talking about the fact that people aren't self reports of organizations who aren't
Hmm.
leveraging data they have. They
Hmm.
aren't communicating it across teams. I think I saw like 70% of like marketing data where it's really meaty data in there.
Hmm.
Most teams aren't ever seeing it. The development team, some of the product management teams. So, yeah, does it take a concerted effort? Absolutely. But I think you'd be surprised how much data you have as a start. And
Yeah.
then get into those, that defining those jobs to be done and getting into the journey mapping session and figuring out where you have gaps. But it does take a concerted effort, but I wouldn't say, it's going to break the bank. You got to start just having a process, a kind of cultural mind shift.
Yeah.
It's just part of it. We talked about a user
Yes.
research roadmap, so you should be collecting this data, finding where data already exists as a starting point. You don't have to have 10 different user research products going on at once, but you might find there's some you do need. Yes.
Yeah.
And you're
And
going to
and I
have more money.
exactly, and I liken it to doing a project in the house. And there have been projects where I'm like, let me go over to Lowe's and go buy a few supplies and just do something. then I boxed myself in where I didn't do the proper planning. And what I thought was going to be my output comes out to be some trash. But the times where I took the time to do a little bit of research, watch a few YouTube videos, planned out my project, sketched a little bit,
Yep.
made sure I had all the right materials, where I did that proper planning up front, the outcomes were a whole lot different. And I think we sometimes forget that this is just like any other. You're building something, you're creating something, product or service. You've
Right.
got to do that work up front to make sure that you're building the right thing in the right way, who's going to consume it and how. All those things are necessary.
They are, and you do have to do it up front. But I think people get a little intimidated when they think of the journey mapping,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure you have all the research for that journey mapping. Get in the room. I think you'd be shocked at what like a 2 or 3 day workshop will accomplish. I've
Yeah.
number of clients go in, have a 1 2 day workshop, and we've come out with huge direction
Mm-hmm.
based on data. In fact, we uncovered data in those
Mm-hmm.
workshops by having the right people. So, get in there, map it
Mm-hmm.
out, understand those jobs to be done, stack hands on that, and start, looking at all that ecosystem, that
Mm-hmm.
where you want to look at the people, the tools, the pain points, the expectations, and
Mm-hmm.
get it up there on the board. And it's really shocking how something as simple as that, not simple, but
But
will
it is.
answer a lot of questions and tell you where you don't have answers. So it really
Yes.
almost helps you think about a research roadmap just going through that initial exercise early on.
And when you think about that product or service roadmap, think about the necessity for a research roadmap that runs alongside
Yes.
the product or service roadmap, because that will ensure that you're not waiting until the last minute to get those insights. You are doing that work alongside the product work, and your research roadmap should run a little bit. It's like the when you see the races on TV and they have the what is the person that runs ahead to kind of get the runners to catch up to them. I,
Yes, yes, I know.
if you think about it, that is kind of where your research roadmap should be, and everyone else should run behind that person who's collecting the data and giving you insights to help inform what goes on your product roadmap. And sure, you might have some features or functions defined in that roadmap where you're doing a tech refresh, or
Yeah,
you're trying to get or gain compliance in areas where you're not. That's totally expected. But for customer facing capabilities, experiences, services, you've got to have it framed from the standpoint of what that person or those users or customers are trying to do,
what they're trying to do.
what
Yes.
they're trying to do. And you brought up a point earlier that I wanted to dig into a little bit. You might have a lot of data inside of your organization that you don't realize the value of. I've had a number of PhDs come to me,
Hmm.
and you probably have as well, who have reached out and said, I'm trying to move from academia into industry. Those are your peeps. Those are your people that are going to be able to go into that data, identify where that data is, how to
Yes.
analyze it. Where they might need some direction is the and so what that they need to do with that data, or to be able to
Yes,
formulate a hypothesis or assumption from that data. But these are people who love to live in data all day long.
they do. I mean, when you're in grad school, that's what you're doing. We're kind of
Yeah.
researchers at heart, and that's our training: analysis, question things, synthesize things
That's right.
to come up with an answer. So yeah, there's a ton of data, and I know
Mhm.
I think about like these workshops. I know I'm reverting back to that, but I think they're really, really good for start, especially if you haven't been staying ahead, back to that roadmap. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of said user experience is important, but there have been no solid steps toward it and solid
Mm-hmm.
steps toward the data. Get in that. It's amazing getting in that room with different folks who you should be inviting to those, and just mapping out what are those
Mm-hmm.
jobs, who
Mm-hmm.
is involved, what tools are involved, based on the research, what are the pain points,
Mm-hmm.
and then uncover those. And what we used to do is have those kind of initial mapping sessions, journey
Mm-hmm.
mapping sessions, as a way to force us to look at what data is there and identify the gaps, and then go off and do what you need. But it's always surprising how much information you do have. And we do tend to just say, oh, I want this feature and that feature, and we're going to do this,
Yes.
and we're going to do that. And you've actually, except on that surface level, never really mapped out what those jobs are, what that journey is, what, all the things involved, because
Yeah.
we've both been in projects where there are things involved that really just sunk a project because you didn't look at maybe all the people, all the roles, all the things
Mm-hmm.
that are occurring
Mm-hmm.
outside of your product. So really,
I've seen situations where we focused on a feature and forgot that that feature cannot be served up until an administrator configures the system
yeah,
and adds you and make sure
yeah,
that you have all of the access and rights that you need. And so we built the feature for the primary user, but we didn't think about the administrative aspects and the fact that we needed to have something on the roadmap to also address that piece of
right.
feature or functionality in order to make the other one possible. I was going to say, as you were just explaining things, we have to imagine, or anyone listening, you have to imagine that your user has an end-to-end journey that they
Hmm.
experience, and the stages might go from awareness to purchase to use, etc. So you have that entire journey. So within that journey, you have the different stages that they experience,
Yeah,
depending on what it is that they're doing and what you're offering, what space you're in. When you think about those different stages, you might now be able to define from an internal perspective a feature or function that fulfills a need within that stage. You want to define things or articulate them in terms of that stage and what someone's
yep,
trying to do in the context of that stage. So, what are they trying to complete? What are they trying to create? What are they trying to deliver? Whatever that might be is where you want to reframe what your roadmap states to be more focused on their goal.
yeah. And
And
what are those dependencies? So that
yes,
you don't pull it out. You're so focused on an individual feature and or stage, and you forget their dependencies there because you haven't really mapped that end to end
mm-hmm,
experience or
mm-hmm,
journey for the user. And I know I've seen really bad examples of that where the offering was like, rock star offering, you just completely forgot about the task and the dependencies that are outside that individual
right,
user and task
right,
that influence. And all it took was a little bit of research. And I've seen cases where 2 days of research would have uncovered, a
that's right,
multi-million dollar failure.
that's right.
And I think I've talked about some of them. It's like you didn't go out, you didn't map that journey to understand, like, for this membership, yeah, the membership's great, your support's great, it's meeting the user's need.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's this whole person that's got to accept that membership that you completely left out of that journey. And guess what? Because of little tweaks that individual needed that
Mm-hmm.
weren't there, they weren't accepting the membership. So it was a big, I don't want to call it
Mm-hmm.
a failure, but it didn't meet expectations and led to failures in products and offerings. So
So going back to my initial question, what you're telling me is that type of work is not too expensive or too time consuming, because in the end, saving millions is a compelling enough story to say we're going to invest up front in this effort.
No, I would say if you can at least do a couple day workshop, that
Yeah.
shouldn't, stretch the budget too thin. So that's a start. The roadmap. So, like you mentioned, that I think those roadmaps for research. Otherwise, you do a
Mm-hmm.
workshop, get out, throw up some, a journey map, and done.
Mm-hmm.
That's great, but got to keep going. It's a
Yeah.
process. You got to keep going. So I like, we had rules around um, staying 5, 6 sprints ahead when we knew something was coming up on the product roadmap.
Yes.
Okay, we have our own plan, we have our own roadmap, and if whatever you need to do, whether it's journey mapping for a full solution or even a little one, a piece of it to make sure you're covering it, have it baked into your process.
So it sounds like a roadmap is not truly just one roadmap. It's roadmaps that together make up the big R roadmap.
Yeah, I mean it can be right,
Yeah.
and it's something you can stack hands on
Mm-hmm.
because you need product management. You need those stakeholders to buy in that this is an
Mm-hmm.
important part of the process. Get ready to show some returns on that in different ways. We'll have a talk about that on a different day, but you've got to have it baked into the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What happens when what's on your roadmap, you go out and you discover things that blow up those things that are on your roadmap? What do you do in those instances?
Well, one, hopefully you have the buy-in you need to trust your research. But I mean, that happens. That's actually the point of doing research. That's the
Mm-hmm.
point of agile. In the agile world, you shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
locked in. We're not. Anything can change. You just want to make those changes earlier rather than later. So we've seen that you're going to
Mm-hmm.
blow up the roadmap. Either you're going to find something isn't going to work, people don't care, or hey, you missed something and it's really going to take, you're going to have to shift some things around to
Yes.
get here before we start over here.
That's the nature of the beast.
That's the nature of the beast, and that's not a negative. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
have to get out of that mindset that there's something wrong. Fail fast, right?
Yeah.
Uncover things quickly and pivot.
That also speaks to the fact that it's all the more justification for not defining your roadmap in terms of a feature or a function, but more around enabling a capability
Yes.
or to
Yep.
help achieve a goal.
Yep.
Because in that case, you are opening the team up to thinking about solving a problem versus building a widget.
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, so it sounds like, roadmaps are there's a big R roadmap, which includes a small R product or service roadmap, and also your research roadmap. You want that research roadmap out in front or ahead of conducting activities that are relevant to that product or service roadmap, but to happen weeks or months in advance so that you can constantly refine that product or service roadmap, refine your understanding of what the solution looks like.
Mhm.
And also, when you think about that journey map and those jobs to be done efforts, those are underway as a part of that research roadmap to ensure that you are accounting for the other people, the other tools, and the processes that are taking place in the context of your solution.
Yes. It kind of helps you, it feeds into that how. So,
Mhm.
product management and marketing research and all that may contribute to that what. But yeah,
Mhm.
you're going to get into the how, and you're going to need those stages you've broken down and really looked at that journey,
Mhm.
that process, your user and their needs. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
So I'll leave with this. My recommendation is to step back and think about, do we have too much feature functionality noted in our roadmap, and do we need to think about, because in some cases that helps the team to understand what I'm building and how it connects back to our customer and their needs. But also, most importantly, where can we store this information so that it's available to others for them to consume, to share ideas, to adjust when necessary. So you've got to think about the right
Exactly.
tool for the culture and from an accessibility standpoint across your
Yes.
organization.
Yes. And I like, these aren't just do a journey map and they
Right.
live on forever. Journeys change, users change, technology change, innovative thinking, puts you in different ways. So, yep,
Mhm.
they're living documents and people need insight into them. Don't hide the data.
That's right. That's right. Well, this was I feel like a good context for upcoming work, and for
Yes.
those that are out there listening in, hopefully we've provided you with something to think about in terms of your roadmap as you get into planning exercises at this time of the year. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye.